Hello everyone, this is Professor Smith and I am going to be discussing with you about propaganda. So this particular PowerPoint is related to the advertisement analysis major writing assignment. So that's the first major writing assignment that you're going to be doing. So in another presentation, I talked about rhetorical appeals. I talked about pathos, logos, and ethos. And right now I'm going to be talking about propaganda. So what exactly is propaganda? Propaganda is an advertisement technique. It is used by advertisers who are maybe trying to sell a product. It could be used by people trying to support a specific political campaign. It could be used by someone trying to support a specific opinion. But most of the time it's used in advertisement. And usually it's propaganda uses emotional appeals instead of solid evidence to support a point or support a specific product or politician. So advertisers, salespeople, and politicians often lack adequate factual support for their points. So they appeal to our emotions by using propaganda techniques. So the thing about propaganda is that it can be extremely effective. But when we are looking at advertisements, it's a good idea to step back for a moment and kind of recognize what these propaganda techniques are, what they are, how these advertisers or campaigners or politicians are using these types of propaganda techniques to get us to agree with their point of view. And one of the things we want to do is both recognize it and possibly resist the propaganda techniques, especially if it's something that we really should step back and really think about before we support. So there are 6 different types of propaganda techniques that you're going to be looking for in the commercials. Now, all 6 of these don't exist, probably will not exist in the advertisement that you're looking at. That's not the point. It can't. Sometimes you might find a commercial that will have all of these, but not always. So Bandwagon, Testimonial, Transfer, Plain Folks, Name Calling, and Glittering Generalities. The first one is called Bandwagon, and what I've actually done is I've attached different advertisements to this PowerPoint that I'm going to have up. And the first one is an Ace Hardware advertisement where this man is saying, all of these people, that whole crowd in back of him, should go to Ace Hardware. So they could, so all of them can fix the garbage disposal or fix the door or do yard work. But the idea of bandwagon is think of the word band. Remember, there's a lot of people that are in a band, right? Bandwagon is the technique where it tells someone to buy a product or support a certain issue because everyone else is doing it. And you've probably done this too a few times. Let's say that you are curious about buying, let's say, a new phone or go, or watch a new movie or pay to watch a new movie. And before you actually go and do it, you look at the reviews, right? And if there's 100 people that say that the movie's really good, you might want to get the movie. But what if 1,000 people say that the movie's bad? You might not want to get the movie, or you might not want to get the phone, because 1,000 people versus 100 people who said it was good, 1,000 people are saying it's bad, chances are you're probably not going to buy that product. So it's a natural technique, it's a natural instinct to join the group. So that's actually what Bandwagon's doing. It's going along with that natural tendency of ours to support something or pay attention if more people are doing it or more people are supporting it. So again, bandwagon technique tells us to buy a product or support a certain issue because in effect everyone else is doing it. So here's a few examples. A TV commercial may claim that more and more people are watching the evening news with a certain anchor person. A cell phone ad may show people in many different types of occupations using a certain cell phone. A political ad may feature people from all walks of life speaking out in support of a certain candidate. So here's a few more. An ad announces a sale, giving us a chance to buy the most popular SUV in America today. Well, let's break that down for a moment. How can it be the most popular SUV if it just got on the market? No one's buying it yet, right? So how is it actually the most popular? In a soft drink ad, a crowd of young people follow a young woman on skates who is drinking a diet soda. So again, that crowd of people following, trying to support a certain product or buy a certain product. So this right here, for a moment, I want you to decide which is which. So I'm going to read them and then you pause the video and think for a moment and then I will tell you the answer. Which statement below is a bandwagon appeal? A beautiful woman in a red dress is shown driving the sponsor's car. Or B, an ad for a weight loss pill features an attractive couple who are just 2 of the millions who have decided to get their bodies back with a new weight loss formula. Pause the video. All right, did you figure it out? In this case, it's B, because we're talking about numbers again, about lots of people supporting or buying a product. Just 2 of the millions who have decided to get their bodies back with a new weight loss, new diet formula. So it's not the first one, it's the second one. So let's skip ahead. So testimonial. Testimonial is a type of technique that uses famous people to support a product or political campaign or a specific opinion. So this commercial right here is Taylor Swift, and she is drinking Diet Coke. And the interesting thing about this commercial is it's more than just testimonial, because there's a lot of people drinking Diet Coke in this commercial. So it's not just her, but a whole bunch of other people as well. So it could also be bandwagon, but primarily it's testimonial. Why? Because of Taylor Swift. First of all, do you really think that she drinks diet soda? She's a vocalist. When you're drinking diet soda and trying to sing, it doesn't work. As someone who actually is a vocalist, it really doesn't work. But either way, there's a lot of commercials out there that have famous people supporting a product or buying a certain soft drink or supporting a specific political campaigner. In this case, she's drinking Diet Coke. Oh, let me move this a little bit so you can see the bottom. There we go. Okay. So the idea behind the testimonial approach is that the testimony of a famous person influences the viewers that admire, know about, and like these people. So testimonial approach tells us to buy a product or support a certain issue because a celebrity is endorsing it. The idea behind this technique is that the testimony of someone we admire will influence us. So famous athletes appear as spokesperson for all sorts of products, from soft drinks to automobiles. So here's a even more recent example of this. This is not quite propaganda, but remember a few months ago when people still were not certain about the coronavirus, and then all of a sudden Tom Hanks, very famous actor, you might know him in Toy Story if you were a kid during the time, when he actually came down with it, people really started paying more attention to the coronavirus and really started taking it more seriously once he had it. So here's 2 examples. So famous athletes appear as spokespersons for all sorts of products, from soft drinks to automobiles. Movie and TV stars make commercials endorsing products and political issues. Here's two more examples of testimonial. A famous actor is shown coping with a swarm of photographers in order to get a bottle of his favorite beer. A popular TV host appears in an ad that indicates she uses a certain credit card. So, you know, all the Capital One credit card commercials definitely has, you know, famous actors in them. And again, it's kind of using the idea that people are more likely going to buy a product if someone they know is sponsoring it, even though we don't actually know these people personally, unless of course you do. I don't know if you know any famous people personally, but the idea is that if they're famous, people will support the product more. So the fame of an actor and of the talk show host is intended to influence us to use products they are endorsing. So take a look at these 2 right here, and you're going to decide which one is testimonial. What I'm going to do is read them both, and then you're going to pause the video, think to yourself about which one you think it might be testimonial, and then you're going to unpause the video. So which ad below is testimonial? A, numerous people crowd around the department store door, waiting for the door to open. B, a famous actress says that she loves to use a certain hair coloring. Pause the video. All right, so which one do you think it is? In this case, it's B. A famous actress says she uses a certain hair coloring. Okay, so definitely B. Famous actress sporting a hair dye product. What about A? What do you think A was? Think about it for a moment. Pause the video. All right, so A is Bandwagon. Remember the idea of a lot of people supporting a certain product? So a crowd of people around a department store in a commercial. Definitely the idea of lots of people are doing it, or lots of people want to go to the store. Why don't you? So definitely Bandwagon. The third type of propaganda technique that we're going to be talking about is transfer. This is actually considered one of the most popular types of propaganda. It's where the commercial is trying to link a product to something that people might like or admire or love or are attracted to. So, for example, in this commercial, they have a young woman and a dog in the commercial, and they show her grow up with the dog. But what they also show is her growing up with this car. So this is a Chevy commercial from 2014. And during the whole commercial, the car is there too, just like the dog is there. So have you ever heard the expression, man's best friend, or the idea that a dog is your best friend? Well, in this commercial, they're trying to say that the car is like a best friend too. I don't know about you, but have you ever named your car before? I've named my car. But what they're trying to do is trying to compare the car to the dog. They're trying to say that the car is reliable and loyal, and that it will always be with you or always be there for you as long as you have it. So again, comparing the 2 together, a dog is not a car, but they're saying that the car can be like the dog. And of course, in this commercial, they're not advertising the dog. They're advertising the car. The idea is that transfer is taking something that is either cute or beautiful or even patriotic. Or you take a holiday and you compare it to a product. So for example, you know what's going to happen soon? We're going to go into autumn soon. And guess what's going to happen? All like, Dunkin' Donuts is going to be advertising their pumpkin lattes. Even though a cup of coffee is not Halloween, it's not autumn, the idea is that the products are made a specific way or advertised a specific way to say, hey, it's that time of year again, go get your pumpkin latte. So that's transfer. When we think of those products, when we think of Dunkin' Donuts pumpkin latte, we think of Halloween. So we're more likely going to buy it, especially if we are in the mood for something for a holiday. So again, transfer can be a number of different things. And I think that's the reason why it's one of the most popular types of propaganda techniques, because it works for so many different things. So take a look at this right here. So you're going to decide right now which one is the propaganda technique here for transfer. A beer company sponsors the Daytona 500 auto race with the line, America's race and America's beer. B, a picture of a can of soda bears the caption, you know it's gotta be good. So pause it for a moment and think about which one do you think is the transfer. All right, have you figured it out? Take a look at the first one. So it is actually the first one. So there's a lot of things happening in A. So first of all, the beer company is sponsoring the Daytona 500, but they are advertising their beer. Beer is not America. The Daytona 500 is not beer. But all of these different things are being used together to advertise the beer. Oh, I'm going to move that up a little bit. There we go. Okay. So the fourth type of propaganda technique is plain folks. The idea of taking a product and saying that the people that are advertising the product are just like regular people. So for example, in TV ads, when you see people that are, have you ever heard the expression, these are real people, not actors? What they're really trying to say is these are just regular people that we've hired, being themselves. So in this first one, this is a famous Swiffer wet jet commercial. So the reason this looks a little bit different is that I put in the link for the YouTube video to this. Actually, I'm going to end it for a moment and go back to where I was. All right. So this is Morty and Lee. So these are not actors. There was this campaign of people who were advertising Swiffer wet jet commercials that were basically, just, again, real normal people. So the reason why this technique exists is that sometimes when we are buying a product, some people feel better about a product if they know that people just like them are buying it too. The second commercial right here is from Acura. And again, I highly recommend that you take a look at these commercials. In this Acura commercial, a man is test driving some cars. But if you watch the commercial, you'll notice that it doesn't look like he's putting dummies in the car. It looks like he's putting real people into the car. Now, these people that he's putting into the car look just like his family. And what the commercial is trying to say is that he cares about his family. So as he's test driving this Acura, he's worried about his own family. And as a result, he's probably worried about your family as well. It's saying that they're just like average people. In plain folks technique, powerful people present themselves as ordinary average citizens. Political candidates often use the plain folks technique. Similarly, presidents of some companies appear in their own ads, trying to show that their giant corporations are just like family businesses run by ordinary folks. In some ads, companies show that they are just like regular people because they worry about the same things normal people worry about. In other ads, normal, non-famous people are hired to be in commercials to show that the company knows what normal people need and want. Are they like normal people? I can't really answer that question. They might be, they might not be, but really the idea is that they're trying to say they're just like everybody else, and therefore, if they make people believe that, we're more likely going to buy their products. So here's another one. Political candidates try to show that they are just plain folks by talking about hard times in their lives. They also pose for photographs while wearing a hard hat or mingling with everyday people. Presidents of some companies appear in their own ads, trying to show that their giant corporations are just family businesses run by ordinary folks. So here's two examples of plain folks. Average-looking American kids are shown at home trying and enjoying a cereal. The president of a poultry company talks to us as if he's an everyday shopper looking for a quick, easy meal to make, just like us. So take a look at these two. A famous basketball player wears the sponsor's sneakers. The president of a car company is shown playing on the lawn with his young children. He says, "I'm head of this company, but I'm also a dad who is concerned about automobile safety." Pause the video. If you guessed B, you're correct. So president of a car company, talking about how he's concerned about his family and automobile safety. The next type of propaganda technique is name calling. So this is just as it sounds. So name calling is the technique where one product will say that you should buy that product because another product is worse. Name calling is the use of emotionally loaded language or negative comments to turn people against a product or political candidate or cause. So in this Sprint commercial, this is actually a man that has starred in AT&T commercials. It's a man followed by a group of people, and he has a phone up to his ear and says, "Can you hear me now? Good." But either way, he is sponsoring Sprint. And in this commercial, he's basically saying that, all phone companies are great, but Sprint is 1% better, and why settle for 1% less? So you may as well go and, join Sprint instead. You might have seen commercials where you have two different dog foods that are being compared to one another, and then a list of ingredients is shown for the different dog foods, like dog food A and dog food B, and it's like, oh, one of them has I don't know, corn in it, and the people are like, oh no, how could they put corn in that type of dog food? And then they show them the names, and it's revealed that the owners have been buying this particular dog food for their dog. But either way, the idea is that a product is being supported by, basically making another product look worse than theirs. So here's another example. So the war between Verizon, Fios, and Comcast. Have you ever seen those commercials before? The idea of saying, one is better than the other. So in this case, the numbers don't lie. See why so many people have switched from worst to first with 100% fiber optic Fios. It's not doing a really good job of actually giving us facts, but here's the thing. When you're watching a 15-second commercial, are you going to be curious about the facts, or are you going to be paying attention to the really quick phrases that they're using? Most of the time, people don't pay attention to the lack of facts or whether or not there's enough support. And if you talk about, let's say, a taste test between two products, let's say it's sauces. And you see all of the people saying like the product that's being advertised is the best. You never see any of the people in the commercials say that the product that's being advertised is, doesn't taste as good. You never see that group of people that said, oh, well, this doesn't actually taste as good as the other one. We never actually see that because it's a commercial. It's meant to make you think in a good way about the product that's being advertised. So here's two examples. A political candidate labels an opponent soft or radical or wimpy. Or in a taste test, customers describe the other leading brand of spaghetti sauce as too salty and thin and tasteless. And this whole idea of ridiculing political campaigners, this is not new. This goes back to when we first started having presidents in this country. Political campaigners would insult other campaigners to the point where they would say things like the other person was overweight, or they would say that the other person was weak. It's not new. It's happened for a long time. And the horrible thing is it kind of works. So people don't really pay attention to the facts. They kind of pay attention to a lot to the name calling. Here's two other examples. During the 1950s, during the early days of the Cold War with the Soviet Union, an exaggerated concern about communism in this country brought charges of un-Americanism to many. During a taste test, consumers described the other leading brand of spaghetti sauce as too salty and thin and tasteless. What you're going to be doing with this one is deciding which one is a name-calling propaganda technique. I'm going to read them both, and then you are going to choose the one that's name-calling. A political ad implies that a candidate who does not support the war in Afghanistan is anti-American. B, a pastor describes how when his house burned down, his home insurance company responded quickly and helpfully. Pause the video and try to figure out which one is name-calling. All right, did you figure it out? It's definitely A. So a political ad implies that a candidate who does not support the war in Afghanistan is anti-American. Like I mentioned earlier in this video, the idea of name-calling in political campaigns has been like this ever since political campaigns in this country began. So again, name-calling is where we say something negative about a product or candidate, and we use that as support for why the other candidate or product is better. What about B? What do you think B is? If you said testimonial, you're right. At first, it almost looks like plain folks, but a pastor isn't really a plain folk. They might be famous in their own little town wherever they are, or might be famous in their own local community. And the idea is that they have a certain amount of power where they are, and a certain amount of people who support them and who look up to them for guidance. So a pastor advertising a product definitely would be considered testimonial. Glittering generalities is the last propaganda technique that we'll be talking about for today. This is most famous in cereal commercials. You know, the Lucky Charms, they're magically delicious, or Trix, they're just for kids, or Frosted Flakes, they're great. All of those have glittering generalities or mottos that you remember. The one on the right is Sleepy's, so trust Sleepy's for the rest of your life. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. That's another one for State Farm insurance. We are farmers, for farmers insurance. So all of these different commercials have what we call glittering generalities, advertising a specific product by having a motto that we remember, but doesn't really have a lot of support. So glittering generalities is an important sounding but unspecific claim about some product, a candidate, or cause. The claim uses fine and virtuous words but says nothing definite. So for example, an ad calls a certain television set simply the best. A campaign slogan claims that the person running for office is the right candidate for the city. Or, for example, there was a soap commercial for Zest soap, and it went zestfully clean. You're not fully clean unless you're zestfully clean. It's like it doesn't really make any sense, right? But people remember it. And that's what glittering generalities do. They have a jingle or motto that makes you remember the product. Here's 2 examples. A room deodorizer exclaims, "Experience the freshness." A canned food ad boasts of nutrition that works. Take a look at these 2 right here and tell me which one is the glittering generality. Again, it's supposed to have a phrase in it or something that makes you remember the product. And it could be an easy phrase that's easy to remember. A car ad claims, "It just feels right." B, a movie star looks over her glasses and says, "Maybe you can't be a celebrity, but you can look like one and glasses like mine." So pause the video. All right, have you figured it out? So in this case, it's going to be A. So it just feels right. So again, a very simple phrase that's easy to remember. What about B? So for B, that's testimonial. So a famous person advertising a product. So oftentimes in commercials, you'll actually see more than one propaganda technique used. Sometimes it's more effective to have more than one propaganda technique being used in a commercial. So for example, in this Kevin Hart commercial, this Hyundai commercial for a car finder, it's a specific app that you can put on your phone that locates your car. And Kevin Hart is playing a father who's watching his daughter go out on a date. And he actually spies on the date to make sure everything's okay. But either way, there's a lot of different propaganda techniques being used here. One, he's acting as a dad. So that's that plain folks technique being used, because people watching the commercial might be parents themselves who are familiar with that fear that comes when their child is leaving the house with their first date for the first time. It's testimonial because Kevin Hart is a famous comedian. And there's glittering generalities in this as well because of the end, car finder, because a dad's got to do what a dad's got to do at the end. So again, remember that small little motto that helps you remember something. There's also transfer in here as well because it's really hilarious. Kevin Hart is acting like the secret agent that is following secretively after his daughter and her date. It's comparing it to all those other spy movies you might have seen in the past. So again, this commercial does a lot with propaganda, a lot of different propaganda techniques, not just one. So the commercial or print advertisement you find might have a number of different propaganda techniques that's being used, and it's your duty to find which propaganda techniques are being used.